What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to The Order. Let's talk about Star Wars Outlaws. I recently had the opportunity to attend a preview event courtesy of Ubisoft where I got a chance to play about 4 hours of the game. The discourse surrounding Outlaws has been all over the place in recent weeks leading up to launch, with gameplay reveals and deep dives receiving mixed reaction due to concerns about the graphics, the open world gameplay, and more. Going in, I've been largely optimistic about the game because it seemed to be delivering exactly the kind of Star Wars experience that a lot of us have been yearning for ever since the infamous Star Wars 1313 project got cancelled. That is to say, a sprawling underworld-focused adventure devoid of any Jedi or Sith or lightsabers that lets you truly go out and explore the galaxy in your own way. Now, quick aside, much has been made of the game being the first real Star Wars open world game, which I take a bit of umbrage over given the fact that both Star Wars Galaxies and Star Wars The Old Republic exist and feature dozens upon dozens of sprawling planets to explore. Maybe within the modern context of what an open world game means, Star Wars Outlaws is the first, but to be clear, being able to explore large maps in the Star Wars universe isn't really an innovation in and of itself. Quick little aside over. And while these first few hours of the game didn't necessarily give me that sense of boundless possibilities, there's enough here to make me really excited about what Outlaws actually brings to the table, which is good stealth action gameplay, a compelling narrative, and an excellent blend of game systems to keep things feeling fresh. Stealth is the name of the game here, as much of Outlaws' action revolves around it. Many missions require you to infiltrate bases and compounds completely undetected, with the don't get caught or don't raise the alarm prompts popping up often. So don't expect to be able to treat this game as a game you can go in guns a-blazing at all times. You'll have to think tactically about how to approach each scenario. Thankfully, you've got a wide range of tools and gadgets at your disposal, none more critical than Nix, Kay's pet, who I assume they'll be selling plushies for at the Disney store very soon. Nix can create distractions, activate grenades and switches, and more, and gives you added freedom in tackling each encounter, making every stealth sequence a small puzzle you have to untangle. Speaking of puzzles, the game builds on the smuggling vibes by putting a huge emphasis on picking locks, hacking computers, and breaking encryptions, which are critical to progressing a quest or unlocking a side objective or reward. When you're not sneaking around and slicing computers, you're gunning down plenty of gangsters and stormtroopers alike. Gunplay feels just about right for the blasters in the Star Wars universe. You'll be dipping down and around the cover often. Enemy AI isn't too interested in letting you camp out in one spot, as they either reposition smartly or fling grenades at you pretty often, which did enough to keep me on my toes and make shootouts more engaging. While Kay's blaster, which can be modified to acquire new firing modes, is your primary form of damage, you can also pick up grenades as well as a variety of rifles and cannons dropped by enemies. Both in stealth and in gunplay, the game really seems to reward you for knowing and understanding your surroundings well and playing off of them. It's such a nice departure from most previous Star Wars games, where elaborate force powers or run-and-gun gameplay have largely dominated. Because you're not playing as an all-powerful badass, the Star Wars universe feels, for the first time in forever, actually dangerous and intimidating. Further emphasized by the choice of protagonist Kay Vest, a plucky young smuggler with a checkered past looking to make her big score in the criminal underworld while also dodging the might of the Empire. Playing as Kay feels like you're at the start of your own journey as a smuggler, so learning new skills and abilities feels less like typical video game leveling and more like actual character progression. This feeling is enhanced by the fact that new abilities are not acquired in the traditional manner of clicking on a skill tree and allotting points. Instead, you have to actually seek out and complete quests for a specific NPC expert in their given field and actively learn that skill. It's a cool twist on a well-worn game system, and I give Outlaws a ton of credit for deploying it in a way that enhances the game's overall sense of immersion. Immersion being a key focus here. I've gotta say, especially in these early worlds, so much has been done to make Star Wars Outlaws feel truly lived in. I'm not talking Red Dead 2 levels of detail here, but simply the vibe. From the UI, which is reasonably understated and stylistically slick in an old school Star Wars cool kind of way, to the overall game world. Outlaws is dripping in that dirty, analog sci-fi grime that feels authentic to an underworld story set in this universe. Walking into a cantina, it's fun to just observe what everyone is doing, from watching sporting events to taking in a drink or a conversation. In many locations, you can walk right into a game of Sabacc and start betting all your credits, or even fire up an arcade-style machine and play an in-universe video game. If you're like me and have a weird fascination with games within games, you're going to be very happy here. You can also sense some thought was put into how this game handles the typical open world quest padding, from hidden passageways to objectives marked as subtle question marks on the map, to listening into conversations that lead into quests. One example, I overheard a conversation about a black market merchant selling legal goods, which led me to finding that merchant and procuring their contraband. To be clear, the writing here was a bit ridiculous and on the nose, as the characters were just openly discussing this not-so-secret password within my earshot, but it still feels significantly more in-universe than the usual yellow blinking quest marker on the map. There's also a bit of autonomy in how you can approach the world through Kay as a character, as the game has situational choice-driven dialogue that pops up in moments where Kay's loyalty with a given criminal faction is at a crossroads. This keeps the game from feeling too on the rails from a storytelling standpoint, as choosing who to align with or deliver a vital item to completely impacts how you navigate the world, who will trust you, and the enemies that you will face. Speaking of navigating, let's talk about space exploration and combat. Leaving a planet and heading into open space is largely a seamless experience, with a short cutscene showing your ship exiting a spaceport with a transitional screen through the atmosphere masking any sort of loading screen. Next thing you know, boom, you're in space and can navigate in any direction. You can jump into hyperspace towards a given planet or explore nearby. Given that, again, this is a game about smuggling, you can find and retrieve cargo and complete objectives that can then turn into a bounty being put on your head and a firefight with local pirates or factions. Space combat is smooth and arcadey with relatively simple lock-in controls. It's significantly less technical than it was in Star Wars Squadrons, but it feels like there's room for a little bit more depth as you upgrade your ship and take on greater challenges later in the game. Overall, I came away from these 4 hours with Star Wars Outlaws feeling, again, pretty optimistic about it. These first few hours don't reveal a particularly groundbreaking or revelatory experience, but they do highlight what is ultimately a polished stealth action adventure game that feels authentically Star Wars, with a good mix of puzzle solving, solid space combat, stealth, immersive environments, and exploration all thrown in the mix. Big thanks again to Ubisoft for giving me a chance to check it out. I feel a lot better informed on what the game is trying to do, and I'm eager to get my hands on the full release to see if it truly lives up to the hype of delivering a next-gen Star Wars open-world experience. Are you excited about Star Wars Outlaws? What are your biggest questions about the game heading into launch? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this video helpful or insightful at all, be sure to hit it with a like and subscribe to the channel for more gaming coverage and insight. Until next time, have a good one.